Hello, my name is Valerie. This weekend I'm going to Wales to share in a family get-together for a significant birthday, not mine. But I have been involved in some of the planning for the weekend, and I know that while we're there, there'll be quite a lot more planning going on, this time for my grandson's wedding. Well, we all know that any major event such as a wedding involves a lot of serious planning if you want it all to work smoothly. Most of the work will normally be the responsibility of the couple themselves and perhaps their parents. But as the time gets nearer, all the guests get involved as well. There's the present to be bought, your outfit to be selected, travel arrangements to make, and so on. Well, today's reading is about a wedding, but one where some of the bridesmaids had absolutely failed to think out in advance what they needed to do. I wonder if Jesus based his story on something that he'd actually experienced in a local wedding. Well, here's the story. The kingdom of heaven will be like this. 10 bridesmaids took their lamps and went to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were foolish and 5 were wise. When the foolish took their lamps, they took no oil with them, but the wise took flasks of oil with their lamps. As the bridegroom was delayed, all of them became drowsy and slept. But at midnight there was a shout, "Look, here's the bridegroom, come out to meet him." Then all those bridesmaids got up and trimmed their lamps. The foolish said to the wise, "Give us some of your oil, for our lamps are going out." But the wise replied, "No, there'll not be enough for you and for us. You'd better go to the dealers and buy some for yourselves." And while they went to buy it, the bridegroom came, and those who were ready went with him into the wedding banquet, and the door was shut. Later the other bridesmaids came also, saying, "Lord, Lord, open to us." But he replied, "Truly I tell you, I do not know you. Keep awake, therefore, for you know neither the day nor the hour." What is Jesus wanting people to learn from this story? Well, he doesn't tell his stories just to give people good advice, even if there is plenty of that in them. They're parables, challenging us to think more deeply about what he's come to do and how people should be reacting to him. This story is about being prepared. If you were in the Guides or the Scouts, you'll remember that was the motto, be prepared. We took it very seriously in my patrol. We always kept enough money in our uniform pockets to be able to pay for a phone call in a public box, and we kept a bit of string there as well, just in case. Age 12 or so, I don't think we'd thought through any deeper implications of what being prepared might mean for our lives. So what is Jesus calling us to be prepared for? The story ends with Jesus' words, "Keep awake. You don't know the day or the hour." And this is normally interpreted as Jesus warning us to be ready for his coming in glory, his second coming, as we call it. How do you feel about the thought of meeting Jesus face to face? I was once giving a talk at an all-age service, not in Portishead, where I asked the congregation what they would do if they were given a week's notice of Jesus' return. I did make sure they realised that this is something we won't get, but just supposing. There were a number of answers, of course, but a few stuck in my mind. One person said he'd read the whole Bible in the week. Whew. Another one just winced and said, "I'd panic." But a young girl in the congregation smiled broadly and said, "I'd bake a cake for Jesus to welcome him." And I thought that was a great answer. She knew Jesus was her friend, and so she'd welcome him as she might do any of her friends coming for a special occasion. Could we say the same? Well, not actually to bake a cake, perhaps, but to be confident that we'll be meeting a friend we know and love, whether it's at his coming in glory or indeed at our own death. Are we prepared? But of course there are other crises along the way and unexpected challenges for which we need to be prepared. One of the points made in Jesus' story is that the girls who hadn't prepared properly by taking along some spare oil for their lamps couldn't rely on their friends to help them out of the mess they found themselves in. They had to go and buy their own. Well, we all faced some major challenges nearly 2 years ago with COVID's arrival. And for many of us, one real shock was the instruction that our churches were to be closed. For those of us whose spiritual life had been fed perhaps for many years by regular church going and meeting up with fellow Christians, or perhaps just by enjoying the peace that comes from sitting in a church on your own, it came as a real challenge. How were we to keep in touch with God without all the familiar helps? There was a sense in which we were very much on our own facing this challenge. Our church, of course, has done a great job to help us, but we'll each have faced the question of whether our lives were sufficiently rooted in our relationship with God to withstand this upset and the loss of the very real things that had always helped us. Communion, hymn singing perhaps, the friendly chat after the service, just the building itself, so on. Did you find that the way in which you'd been living adequately prepared you for the challenges that the last 2 years have brought? Or have you, as it were, felt you were running out of oil? How do you feel about things now? Do you feel you've grown in faith, or has it been a struggle to keep alive spiritually? Have you perhaps learnt new ways of meeting with God and being strengthened by him, while still, of course, valuing all that went before? When you heard this story, you may have been reminded of that familiar chorus, "Give me oil in my lamp, keep me burning." Simple words, but a good prayer, and an encouragement to live in such a way that we are prepared for whatever challenges we may meet along the way, as well as for that final moment, whenever it comes for us, so that we'll meet Jesus with a smile as a familiar and beloved friend.